and welcome to Spill the Tea, a podcast by Penang Institute where we get into the minds of individuals who break stereotypes. I'm your host, Bami Ting. On today's episode, we are in conversation with architect Tan Bu, award-winning architect who has spearheaded various projects in Malaysia and abroad through her diverse architecture and design portfolio while working in Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and Penang. Bu is the founder of Beta Architects, a boutique firm known for restoring old buildings to adapt to their new functions. Now, under her leadership, the firm has received numerous accolades for its outstanding contributions to architectural conservation. Through meticulous restoration and adaptive reuse of historical structures, Bu has breathed new life into Penang's architectural legacy, while also addressing the evolving needs of contemporary society. Beta Architects became the youngest firm to have won gold in PAM Awards, which is also known as the Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia Awards, in 2019 for alteration and addition category for the highly acclaimed Penang Digital Library 2, Library in the Park. The firm continues to win a slew of awards every year since. Now, Bu is also a lecturer with University Science Malaysia, a columnist with The Star, and currently the Penang City organizer of Pecha Kucha Penang, a global network event which originated from Tokyo. Bu was also named in Tatler Asia's most influential people list in 2021 and 2022. Welcome to Spill the Tea, Bu.
Thank you, Mei Ting. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for being here. It's truly our pleasure to have you here in this studio with us.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
For our listeners' information, this episode is actually being recorded in Penang Institute's South Wing, which was beautifully restored by Beta Architects. And to be honest, I work here and every visitor that has ever been here has said how beautiful and how impressed they are with the place. And this is really thanks to the wonderful work that Bu and her team did for this once dilapidated bungalow. And, before I joined Penang Institute, I've seen this place. I've seen how the South Wing, or before that it wasn't even called the South Wing, and I've seen how run down it was with pieces just dropping off from the roof into the car park, really a hazard almost. And right now, whoever who actually would get the chance to visit Penang Institute's South Wing for yourself, you'd be impressed. I guarantee that.
Good. Happy to hear.
Yeah. Let's start by talking about your work on heritage buildings, because I know that you have a vast portfolio on designing and building new buildings and skyscrapers. But how did you arrive at this niche area of restoring heritage buildings?
Okay, very good first question, Mei Ting. I think some have attended my talk before where I shared that my strength was actually in high-rise. When I started my practice, I just completed 8 high-rise towers ranging from 35 to 60. So, and with that expertise in high-rise, I started my practice looking for, projects with meaning, projects with impact on community. So I felt our practice path fell through very organically. Our first few initial projects that involve giving old buildings a second life. The very first one is actually PBA's administration building in Sungai Dua, the water treatment plant. So we were tasked to transform the water tank structure, convert it into office space. So that's actually our very early endeavor in adaptive reuse, changing water treatment plant building into an office space. And then we had this opportunity to meet Dato', where we worked on North Wing.
Yes.
So we restored North Wing, a 2-story bungalow, into its original splendor. And that is when we remember, the baby blue window, and
yes.
South Wing was in pink.
Correct.
So I guess we were really happy to be able to assist Penang Institute on restoring the 2 bungalows, right? And from there, one after another, Penang Digital Library, Harmony Center, Kedah Digital Library, iTrop, it seemed to just fall in place very organically, one after another. And as we work on more old buildings, I personally felt that I have to tap on my high-rise expertise on, because you really need to know what goes through the old building. You need to have a good, strong understanding of structure, the extent of what structure can do, and the maximum knowledge of M&E and CNS. So that's how, I combine high-rise knowledge in old buildings.
And I must say, Penang is very blessed that this actually happened in your journey because of all these other new places that has come up in a sense that heritage buildings are being reused for purposes which are relevant today.
Yeah. I also like that you wanted to know whether it's more challenging to work on old building and new, because it's become like our mission to create more awareness and understanding that adaptive reuse is not just a simple renovation. I think we start with Penang. We try to change that perception that adaptive reuse requires experience to really transform old into new. Hopefully, as years to come, that this type of work will get better recognition, appreciation from stakeholders and all levels of owners. So it's definitely, to answer your question, working on old buildings far more complex than starting
building new ones.
Starting new is exciting. You create a building from zero to a masterpiece, with no constraint. The sky is the limit. But with adaptive reuse, you need to respect the structure. The framework is there, and because of our high visions of keeping the old, then the level of creativity, is many times more than doing a new building, because we have to be creative to meander through existing spaces. So like in South Wing, for example, the original building was designed as a house. So how do you create a house of bedrooms, a house with living, dining, and a kitchen? How do we transform that structure and turn it into a public building for office and library? So, I like to share that definitely going through around fixed structure, yet very, very creatively make the space work for a new purpose. That is very challenging, but to us, it is, that what makes it more exciting.
More exciting and certainly definitely more satisfying, I would think.
I suppose it's not for the faint-hearted, because if you are looking for an easy job, then, it's definitely not. So it requires a lot of effort of rethinking and finding the best solution.
Okay. And, just continuing on this topic, I've been to some of your projects like Edgecliff in Penang Hill, the Penang Digital Library at Penang Free School, and the Penang Harmony Center. And every time I'm in one of your projects, I'm always in awe with how modernity is so seamlessly woven into these old building structures. So really, how do you create such magic? How do you create such spaces? And also, more importantly, why do you think it's important to have modern designs in old buildings?
Thanks, May. I think you are being very sensitive to pick up this whole old and new, modern versus heritage. To be honest, we don't really prioritize on imposing modernity on old building, but we put in high priority on being contextual and being sensitive to the old buildings that we intervene. Say for Penang Harmony Center, we were tasked to add a new hall next to existing old bungalow. So to us, its first step is always to study what's suitable, what's the best and most sensitive intervention, and then we will find ways to design in such a way that it becomes timeless. Elegance is more important to us, and shades of calming shades, celebrate natural lighting, play with shadows whenever we can. And we find that that kind of a set of solution brings a very interesting solution of very welcoming space, and hence we don't really deliberately go all out for modern.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you also wanted to ask about how we create, spaces of, like old and new. We look for ideas of proportion. We look for inspiration of the existing building, certain shapes. Say for iTrop Penang Hill, the existing bungalow came with really grand arches.
Okay.
And at the living room, at the kitchen, at the arrival gallery, there's a corridor with a few arches. And we instantly felt to accentuate the arches and turn it to become our main concept. So we actually look for inspiration from each building. So therefore, we don't apply like one same solution to different
For
buildings.
every
So every
building,
building, deserve a unique treatment.
Okay. So I find the thing you said, about different elements, basically of like, for example, the dancing shadows and how you're trying to create like elegance in these buildings to be nuances which are so important, I think, for people to actually still use certain buildings in like, and to keep the relevance of the place and feel very light and comfortable in a place. And this type of restoration, I find, is so very different from the types of restorations that we have always been hearing about in Penang, especially with heritage architecture, heritage buildings, for example. Well, really like very temple type of buildings, basically. And this is so different, which I find very interesting, and a different way to think about old buildings. Yeah.
Because I felt, because of my background of, mostly commercial and high-rise projects, where the priority is also on cost efficiency.
Yeah.
How to build with the best impact and the lowest value, because that's how high-rise projects work. So with that strong foundation, when we work on the heritage public buildings, so we become equally conscious of the budget. So a lot of times it's also driven by the humble budget.
Okay.
And then at the same time, who I've become after all the high-rise project is I've become very frugal in design. And along the way, I observed that in Penang, in Malaysia, or in our tropical climate, we actually enjoy sun throughout the year. And we are not using enough of that free resource in our buildings. And I felt, why aren't we using enough of natural lighting into the buildings, where we don't really need all our artificial lights during the day. So when we got the chance to work on the digital library, we were so excited to really create like a new image of a library where you read under the natural light. So we push all the reading spaces near the window. So I just visited last week, with my students, and it's quite heartwarming to see all the students reading. They're like hugging the windows, and there's no lights. They prefer not to switch on the lights at the desk. So I felt that is the beauty of using natural lighting, and the shadow comes apart from the natural light. So when we bring in natural light from Skylight, Digital Library and Harmony Center, and then we frame vistas, we bring lighting from windows like iTrop and Edgecliff. Kedah Digital Library, we did the same. And then we felt this timeless value of lighting, natural and free. It brings in the different ambience of interior design. And then the hidden reason is because, we have to be within the budget.
Yes.
So use natural lighting, because it's free.
Which is free. Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
and I personally think it's also much more comfortable compared to artificial lighting.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so speaking about your students, so you brought your students to your projects, and just tapping on this, I remember the very first time I ever spoke to you, really, which was actually over a phone call. I recall thinking how humble you are, really, despite all your achievements. And of course, when I finally met you in person, my impression of you being such an optimistic and encouraging person was really confirmed. And also, for our listeners, BU writes a lot of articles, whether it's in the Star or on her LinkedIn page. These are super interesting articles, and most of the articles is really very encouraging, I think, to young architects or even really just the general public, for us who are not architects at least. And it gives me an impression that you're a very supportive mentor, right? So what do you hope to do actually for these budding architects and maybe also the larger society or readers?
I think that's another excellent question, Meeting. From what I observe, because architecture it's an exciting career, but it's not easy and very challenging, complex, and almost really demanding. And I'm on a mission to really expose our students to the real world. So I always talk to my students that, I'm like from the dark side because I've been practicing for almost 2 decades, and then I start teaching. So, I always tell them jokingly that, I bring you real life stories. After you graduate, this is what's going to happen. And, whatever you learn in university will not be enough. So then I found that I could use platforms like LinkedIn and Star to kind of like indirectly insert exposures, insert business ideas, and a lot of times are soft skill and values that we don't really realize that our students need to hear. Values like how to stay gritty, you have to be resilient, and most important of all is passion. So I want my students to really have this strong passion, because without passion, you can't last in architecture. You can last 3 years, 5 years in university, but you can't last the marathon. So every opportunity that I have, I will encourage them that look at architecture as a marathon. It's not a sprint in 5 years, but the reward is always there because it's about giving back to society. The buildings that we create, it lasts longer than our lifetime. And if we could do great buildings, why not put that a little bit extra effort to leave behind great buildings? And why do something that is half-hearted, and because it's just a day's job, 9 to 5, and you just want to have your work-life balance? So I actually bring these issues up and talk it openly, that there are many ways to handle work-life balance. Work hard, play hard, but passion, has to be number one. So the reason I enjoy teaching is I find purpose and value in, at least planting a seed of belief. They have to believe that, what they're doing now has value in the future. And that way, when they're studying in university, they see purpose. It's not just about CGPA, but they're training to be somebody in their time to come.
Wow. So yeah, I always remember thinking, because I have a few friends who, back in university, who were architecture students, and I remember they are the ones who really had to spend overnight in the studio and all that. And I remember thinking that, wow, their degree is so much more difficult than my own. And truly, I think passion, as you mentioned just now, is really the secret sauce in anything that we do. And I remember reading an article on your LinkedIn just after Chinese New Year, I think, where you mentioned that, during your reunions, you realized that relatives were commenting on your articles in the Star. Would you like to tell us more?
It's just something quite amusing, because I was quite happy to write for Star newspaper, because when I was younger, I always read the newspaper and always shoot out for, why nobody writes about architecture, And when the opportunity came, I was just saying, I've been waiting for this. So when I started writing, I thought I could kind of like bring architecture to, the readers who are probably housewife, retired teachers.
I know, my mom is an avid reader of your articles.
and then I was like, it will be interesting, and I try. So I actually tell LinkedIn readers openly, like, look, all these articles are not for architects, because these are like fundamentals, one at a time. But then I realized fellow architectural friends, my students are reading it. So that posting that I wrote about the interesting Chinese New Year interaction was usually the usual gathering revolves around family, kids. And then this year, I find myself, having questions like, I never realized, can you tell me about old buildings, this termite problem, and, about your market project. And, I now understand what is focal point, repetition, and these are, auntie, uncle. And so suddenly I was feeling very pleased and a little bit, paiseh and embarrassed at the same time. I was like, can you do the usual
The usual auntie talk.
yeah. But then that whole interaction gave me hope, and I keep getting feedbacks from random architect friends that it's good to have a bit of exposure and appreciation. And I thought, now it's good that everyone understand design. At this point, I'm curating on travel architecture. Writing about buildings in the global front that can inspire us. So we'll see how that batch of stories will go down to the readers.
Okay,
You let me know.
Super, looking forward to it, and I also let you know what my mom thinks of it when it comes out in the store.
I think the whole purpose is to bring awareness and appreciation in design, and bring excitement to when for readers who don't travel to other places, and I bring back interesting buildings, and I hope that small amount of inspiration will make a long way of changes in mindset, in how we see design, and in our taste of the look and feel of our building. Start from home first, then after that in the stakeholder building. And I hope the more we read about design as a community, the whole community appreciation of design will increase and elevate over time. Because in order to convince, to sell good design, we need buy-in. We need owners to believe, this is worth doing, worth investing on. So I do what I can. So when I teach, I try to encourage that commitment to doing good work. So we'll see how all these small efforts, if we will have any collective impact, which I hope not in a near fortnight, but slowly. I hope you have a bit of a ripple effect.
Yeah, ripple effect, and will definitely increase the whole ecosystem. And when things increases expectations, and then quality automatically also improves in that manner, I think.
Yeah, because it's quite interesting that because right now, as we have we meet new owners when we talk about certain ideas, and at random owners, they will say, I read about your article, so I know what you're talking about. I was like, that's exactly when we talk about visual connectivity. And they say, okay, I understand because you wrote about visual connectivity, So I felt, okay, that's, half my work done on trying to explain.
Yeah.
So let me know if you have new ideas, what you want to hear.
Yeah, that'll be excellent. So just moving slightly away, so especially talking about mindset, but of course now I'm gonna shift the conversation a little bit on a different sort of mindset. We know of numerous famous and successful female architects, but is the industry actually still very male dominated? And how do you feel really as a woman architect? Are there a lot more barriers to work on and to break?
I think at this point that we are talking, the environment, the landscape is, much, much better, much more encouraging and supportive to female architects. But comparatively, probably 20 years ago, or when I just came back from Singapore, I would hear contractors kind of like whispering among themselves, the architect is jabor. Or I would go to site and they will be expecting to see my boss. Then they will hear that the jabor is the architect, but that was a really long time ago. And looking back, I think most of the men on construction site, I think they are very supportive, and I feel my message to my female students that you don't get special treatment because you are a woman architect on site. You need to have the equal knowledge and experience. So you need to carry your weight as well. You must know your stuff, because you don't want to be labeled like a bimbo flower pot. Like,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so there is no discount of, trying to get away just because we wear skirt on site. But to answer your question, I think it's been a lot of mutual respect from contractors, from consultants. I don't see them seeing me as, man or woman. It's really about ability, how you handle yourself, how you solve problems, how you treat others with respect, and you get the same if you do it well. So it's really positive for our young listeners, future architects.
Definitely, because in society, no doubt we are already in 2024 now, but like there would still be some fields whereby people will still expect to see a male turning up, especially in work sites, basically, and it's truly very inspiring to hear that this has actually shifted quite substantially, hopefully, in the past years. And do you think that this could actually be because of social media, even the whole woman empowering thing in all different fields of careers? I think that might have played a role, I think.
Yes and no, but we still have a lot of contractors, construction workers who may not be really in tune with the social media exposure, but I felt it is the increasing number of women in the construction field, in architecture, in CNS, in MA. So the more we see women faces, and then these women are capable, equally fighters, same fighters like fellow males, and so that breaks the whole difference of gender, male, female. As long as you are good, then you are good. Of course, I have my guy friends. They would joke that contractors talk to you nicer because you are a woman, and they are a bit more polite. But if they talk to a man architect, they are rough and break into argument. I said, no, I talk to my contractors nicer because you wear a skirt.
Oh, come on.
So this was a few years back, and then it was quite amusing, but I don't really want to think much about it, but I felt it is really about the quality
of work.
And men, women, you could break into an argument with a contractor if you're not careful with your words. So if you have that same level of tact, because I tend to be quite strict on site workmanship, but I have my ways of empowering the big vision with my contractor. I don't just tell them, please follow my drawing. But I will break it to layman terms like, I want to bring in the light into the ground floor. Can you make sure you don't block the light? I will tell them in really tangible visual. And get them equally inspired. And when we have floor tiling, or I want certain tidy arrangement because we want a calming vibe. And instead of demanding certain ways to do it, I will literally teach the tiler, okay, you must do this, look at this setting out, and then empower the knowledge. So one funny incident was one of my random spot check on site. I think the workers, the doer themselves were doing, I think they have not met me before because I spoke to the supervisor. So I overheard them talking to each other in Malay. Say, hey, you make sure, you must align because the architect say it has to follow this. I was like, well, good.
Very good.
So I share this openly in my talk that at times, now this doesn't mean because I'm man or woman, but it's just finding a way to communicate. If I continue to show construction drawings and say just follow and don't ask why, but I choose to just tell them why. And a lot of times they don't even need to refer at the drawings anymore.
Make
them understand why.
Make them understand exactly. So that means builders really need to get into the mindset of understanding why certain structures are designed in a certain way that you have required them to do. And certainly just following drawings without understanding the reasons behind it, I think would be a little underwhelming if they were just to follow blindly.
Yeah, correct. And I think I've learned that through a lot of mistakes as well. In my whole years of construction, when I was working on the 8 high-rise tower, we were doing design and build. So I talked to the construction team almost every day. That's really frequent, and I see the importance of communicating, and we cannot just rely on paper. So we have to explain, and that principle has carried on with me when I teach. I don't tell my students that you need to do A, B, C, D, E, but I explain to them, look, if you don't do this, this will happen, and this is the bigger why. And why is drawing so important? Because drawing is our nature of recording instruction. And when I run out of avenues to kind of like talk about this, I run to LinkedIn. So you see my random thoughts. I will have like extension of lessons, after a certain lecture, then I felt, I need to add on. So I use LinkedIn to put in tips, how to present, stand near the screen, use hand gesture. You would see that. I noticed you read. So I leave that pepper, all these thoughts and notes, and hope somebody reads it.
I'm sure a lot of people read your articles.
Okay.
Yeah. So, BU, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I've been speaking to Architect Tan BU, award-winning architect and founder of Beta Architects. This is Spill the Tea, a podcast by Penang Institute.
Thank you, Mei Ting. See you soon.
Yes.